This $5 fix stops brake squeal on most cars. The mechanic charges $250 to do it. That high-pitched squeal every time you brake is one of the most annoying sounds a car can make. A shop will quote you $200, sometimes $250 to make it stop. But for the most common kind of squeal, the real fix costs about $5 and 20 minutes in your driveway. Most people ruin it by putting the product in the wrong place, and I'll show you exactly where it goes. Stick around because squeal has several different causes, and I'm covering the cheap fix for each one. Let me be straight with you right away, because that's the whole point of this channel. There is no magic spray that stops every brake squeal forever. Anyone who tells you that is selling you something. Squeal comes from vibration, from glazed pads, from rust, or from genuinely worn-out parts. The cheap fixes work great for the first three. They do nothing for the fourth. I'll tell you which is which, so you don't waste money or, worse, gamble with your brakes. Here's the plan for today. First, the main fix. The right lubricant in the right spot to kill vibration squeal. Second, 2 related cheap fixes for the other common causes. Third, I'm busting the viral fake versions of this trick that can actually ruin your brakes. Stay to the end for the one mistake that sends people straight back to the squeal. Let's talk about the main problem. Why brakes squeal in the first place? That sound isn't your brakes failing, at least not usually. It's vibration. When you press the pedal, the brake pad clamps against the spinning rotor. If the pad can vibrate even slightly against the caliper or the bracket it sits in, that tiny vibration turns into a high-frequency sound wave, and your ears hear it as a squeal. Think of it like running a wet finger around a glass. Small vibration, loud noise. There are a few things that let that vibration happen. The metal contact points where the pad slides can be dry, dirty, or lightly rusted, so the pad chatters instead of sitting tight. The little anti-rattle clips or shims can be missing or worn, or the pad surface itself can get glazed, which is a hard, glassy layer that builds up from heat and changes how the pad grips. Here's what a shop typically does. They take the wheels off, pull the brake pads, clean everything up, apply proper brake lubricant to the contact points, sometimes install new hardware or shims, and put it all back together. That's real work, and it's worth something. But the parts are cheap. What you're mostly paying for is an hour or so of labor, and shop labor runs anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour depending on where you live. That's how a $5 fix turns into a $250 bill. You're not paying for the grease, you're paying for the time. And if you've got basic tools and an afternoon, that time can be yours instead. Now the main fix, step by step. The product you want is brake-specific grease, often called brake caliper grease or brake lubricant. Look for a synthetic, high-temperature formula made specifically for braking systems. Brands like Permatex and CRC make small tubes or packets for around $4 to $7, and one tube does many brake jobs. This is critical. Use only grease labeled for brakes. Regular grease can't handle the heat and can damage rubber parts. Get the right stuff. Tools you'll need: a jack and jack stands, a lug wrench, basic hand tools to remove the caliper, usually a socket set, a wire brush, some brake cleaner spray, and gloves. That's it. Safety first, and I mean this. Never ever work under a car held up by only a jack. Use jack stands on solid level ground, with the parking brake off, but the wheels you're not lifting chocked. Brakes are a safety system. If you're not confident doing this correctly, there is no shame in taking it to a pro. We'll talk about when that's the right call later. Step 1. Loosen the lug nuts on the wheel while the car is still on the ground. Just break them loose. Then, jack the car up, set it on jack stands, and remove the wheel. Step 2. Locate the caliper. It's the clamp straddling the rotor. You'll typically see 2 bolts holding it on, called caliper slide bolts or guide pins. Remove them and carefully lift the caliper off. Do not let it hang by the rubber brake hose. Support it with a bungee cord or a piece of wire hooked to the suspension so there's no strain on the line. Step 3. Slide the brake pads out of the bracket. Pay attention to how they sit and which way they face so they go back the same way. Step 4. Clean the contact points. These are the metal tabs and ledges in the caliper bracket where the pads slide and rest. Use the wire brush and brake cleaner to knock off rust, old grease, and grime until the metal is clean. This is the step that does most of the work. Step 5, and this is where most people go wrong. Apply a thin layer of brake grease only to the contact points, the back of the pads where they touch the caliper, piston, and fingers, and the slide pins. Never put grease on the friction surface of the pad or on the rotor face. Grease on the part that's supposed to grip will ruin your braking and is genuinely dangerous. A thin film on the metal contact points is all you need. Step 6. Reinstall the pads, set the caliper back over them, and torque the bolts to the proper spec. Look up the torque value for your specific car, because too loose is unsafe and too tight can damage the threads or the slide pins. Put the wheel back on, snug the lugs, lower the car, and torque the lug nuts in a star pattern to spec. Step 7. Do not skip this. Before you drive anywhere, pump the brake pedal several times until it feels firm. The first time you press it after reassembly, the pedal can go to the floor, and you do not want to discover that rolling out of the driveway. Pump it until it's solid, then test the brakes gently at low speed before you trust them. So what should you realistically expect? I'm going to undersell this on purpose. If your squeal was caused by dry or lightly rusted contact points, which is the most common cause, this fix very often makes it quiet right away or within a few stops. That's the satisfying outcome, and it's the one most people get. But I'm not going to promise silence forever because that's not honest. Brakes live in a brutal environment: heat, water, road salt, brake dust. Over months, contact points can dry out again, or rust can creep back, especially in wet or snowy climates. So think of this as maintenance you might redo once a year, not a permanent seal. The good news is that once you've done it, the repeat job takes you 15 minutes and pennies in grease instead of another $250 visit. And here's the honest catch. If your squeal comes back almost immediately, or if it's more of a grinding or scraping sound than a clean squeal, grease isn't your answer. That points to a different problem, and that's the next fix. The one that actually saved me more money than the grease did. Related fix number 1. Glazed pads and rotors. Sometimes the squeal isn't from dry contact points. It's from glazing. When brakes get very hot, from riding the pedal down a long hill or hard repeated stops, the pad surface can develop a hard, shiny layer. Glazed pads don't grip as well and often squeal. The rotor can glaze too. The cheap fix here can be free. For light glazing, you can scuff the glassy surface off the pads with sandpaper, around 120 grit, just enough to break up the shine and expose fresh material. Same idea for the rotor face with a sanding block. You're not trying to remove metal, just knock the glaze off. A pack of sandpaper is a couple of dollars, and you may already have some. There's also a technique called bedding in your brakes, which seats the pad and rotor together properly. It involves a series of controlled slowdowns from moderate speed, done safely and legally with no traffic around, to bring the brakes up to temperature and lay down an even layer of pad material. Done right, this can clear up noise, and improve braking feel. Look up the specific bedding procedure for your pad brand because the right number of stops and speeds matters. The point is, before you spend a dime on new parts, glazing is often fixable with sandpaper and good technique. Related fix number 2, missing or worn anti-rattle hardware. Brake pads sit on small metal clips, sometimes called abutment clips or anti-rattle shims, that hold them snug in the bracket. Over the years, these clips rust, lose their springiness, or get tossed out during a previous brake job by someone who didn't bother replacing them. When the clips are weak, the pad rattles and squeals no matter how much grease you use. The fix is a brake hardware kit. These are vehicle-specific sets of fresh clips and shims, and they're cheap. Usually $10 to $20 for a full set covering both wheels on an axle. Swapping them is easy. When you have the caliper off and the pads out, you pop the old clips out of the bracket, clean the seats, and press the new ones in. They only fit one way, so it's hard to get wrong. Add a thin film of brake grease where the clips contact the bracket so they don't rust in place. This is one of those fixes that mechanics quietly do as part of a brake job and charge you labor for, but on its own it's a 15-minute task. If your pads still have plenty of life left and the only issue is noise, new hardware plus fresh grease often solves it completely. Pair it with the contact point, cleaning from the main fix, and you've covered the 2 most common squeal causes for under $25 total. Now let's bust the viral fake versions of this trick, because some of them can wreck your brakes. The worst one going around, spraying WD-40 or any general purpose lubricant on squealing brakes. Do not do this. Those products are not made for braking systems. They can get on the friction surfaces and they reduce your stopping power. A quiet brake that doesn't stop the car is not a fix. It's a hazard. The only lubricant that goes near brakes is grease specifically labeled for brakes, and only on the metal contact points, never the pad face or rotor. Myth number 2, that brake cleaner alone permanently stops squeal. Brake cleaner is great for cleaning, and it's part of the job, but spraying it on and calling it done doesn't address dry contact points or bad hardware. It evaporates and leaves nothing behind. It's a step, not the whole fix. Myth number 3, the idea that any squeal means you urgently need a whole new brake job with new rotors and pads. Shops love this upsell. Plenty of squeals are just vibration or glaze on perfectly good pads with lots of life left. Always check pad thickness before you let anyone sell you a full replacement. If there's meat left on the pads, you may just need cleaning, grease, or hardware. And myth number 4, that a single squeal stop shim sticker slapped on the back of a pad fixes everything. Those adhesive shims can help with vibration and they're a legitimate product. But if your real problem is rust, glaze, or worn clips, a sticker on top of those problems won't hold. Fix the actual cause first. Let's talk common mistakes, because these are how people turn a cheap fix into an expensive lesson. The biggest one, getting grease on the friction surface. I keep repeating it because it's that important. Grease on the pad face or rotor ruins braking and is dangerous. Keep it on the metal contact points only. And if you ever contaminate a rotor, clean it thoroughly with brake cleaner. Mistake 2, using the wrong grease. Regular automotive grease or general lubricants can't take the heat and can swell rubber seals. Use brake-specific grease, period. Mistake 3, letting the caliper hang by its rubber hose. That hose carries brake fluid under pressure, and stretching or kinking it can cause a leak or failure down the road. Always support the caliper with wire or a bungee. Mistake 4, not torquing things properly. Guessing on caliper bolts and lug nuts is a real safety risk. Look up your car's torque specs and use them. A basic torque wrench is a worthwhile $20 to $40 tool that pays for itself fast. Mistake 5. Skipping the pedal pump before driving. Press that brake pedal several times until firm before the car moves. Every single time. It takes 5 seconds and it's non-negotiable. Here's the honest caveat. The part the clickbait channels skip. If your pads are worn down near the wear indicator, if you hear grinding instead of squealing, if you feel pulsing in the pedal, if the squeal is constant even when you're not braking, or if you see fluid leaking near a wheel, stop. These are not noise problems. These are real wear or safety issues, and grease will not fix them. That's when you replace pads and rotors or have a professional handle it. Brakes are the one system where it's smart to spend the money when it's actually needed. Cheap is great for noise. It's not great for ignoring real wear. Let's recap. For the most common kind of brake squeal, vibration from dry or rusty contact points, the fix is brake grease in the right spot, about $5 and 20 minutes, versus a $250 shop bill. Glazing fixes with a couple dollars of sandpaper and good technique. Worn clips fix with a $10 to $20 hardware kit. And the fake hacks, like spraying WD-40 on your brakes, can put you in danger, so skip them. If this saved you money, hit like and subscribe, because the next video is the one a lot of you have been asking for. How to tell exactly when your brake pads are worn out using nothing but a flashlight and a coin, so you never get upsold a brake job you don't need. I'll see you there.